Oh, my soul, and all that is within me, Baruch His I will worship Yahuwah, oh my soul, and all that is within me, Baruch His I will worship Yahuwah, and all that is within me, Baruch His Al Baruch Yahuwah, Al Baruch Yahuwah, with a heart of thanksgiving. Al Baruch Yahuwah, Al Baruch Yahuwah, Al Baruch Yahuwah, with a heart of thanksgiving. Al Baruch Yahuwah, Al Baruch Yahuwah, Al Baruch Yahuwah, with a heart of thanksgiving. Al Baruch Yahuwah, with my hands lifted up, and my mouth filled with praise, with a heart of thanksgiving. Al Baruch Yahuwah, with my hands lifted up, and my mouth filled with praise, with a heart of thanksgiving. Al Baruch Yahuwah, Al Baruch Yahuwah, With a heart of thanksgiving, Yahuwah, with a heart of thanksgiving. Yahuwah, with my hands lifted up, and my mouth filled with praise, with a heart of thanksgiving. Yahuwah, with my hands lifted up, with a heart of thanksgiving. With a heart of thanksgiving. With a heart of thanksgiving. Yahuwah, with my hands lifted up, and my mouth filled with praise, with a heart of thanksgiving. Yahuwah, with my hands lifted up, and my mouth filled with praise, with a heart of thanksgiving. Yahuwah, with my hands lifted up, and my mouth filled with praise, with a heart of thanksgiving. With a heart of thanksgiving. Filled with praise. Yahuwah, with my hands lifted up, and my mouth filled with praise, with a heart of thanksgiving. Worthy, worthy, Yahuwah is worthy of my praise. Worthy, worthy, Yahuwah is worthy of my praise. You know it's worthy of my praise. Worthy, worthy. You know it's worthy of my praise. Worthy, worthy. You know it's worthy of my praise. I say he's worthy of my praise. Worthy of my praise. You know it's worthy of my praise. I say he's worthy of my praise. Worthy of my praise. You know it's worthy of my praise. Worthy, worthy. I say he's worthy of my praise. Worthy of praise. You know it's worthy of my praise. I say he's worthy of my praise. You know it's worthy of my praise. I say he's worthy of my praise. Worthy of my praise. You know it's worthy of my praise. Worthy, worthy. You know it's worthy of my praise. Worthy, worthy. You know it's worthy of my praise. I say he's worthy of my praise. Worthy of my praise. Worthy of my praise. I say he's worthy of my praise. Worthy of my praise. You know it's worthy of my praise. Worthy, worthy. You know it's worthy of my praise. Worthy, worthy. You know it's worthy of my praise. I say it's worthy of praise. You know it's worthy of my praise. I say praise. Worthy of my praise. You know it's worthy of my praise. I say it's worthy of my praise. Worthy of my praise. You know it's worthy of my praise. I say it's worthy of my praise. Worthy of my praise. You know it's worthy of my praise.
Hello, Yahuwah is because he is truly worthy of all the praise, worthy of all the spirit that we can give unto this set apart. hear, the first voices that you hear will be a portion of the immediately follow that take us into a time of declaration. This time of declaration, and as we make a declaration in the atmosphere, I'm reminded as we make some transitions and as the Abba is allowing us to make some things happen, I'm just thankful for all that He's allowing to come our way, for all the things He's allowing us to do, and for even the things when times seem to get a little difficult. I'm still yet thankful because God has brought us a long way, and there's still a long ways yet to go. But one thing about it, we never travel alone, for He is always with us. He is always near us, and as long as we keep the love not within our hearts, He is truly always with us. And even though we don't have a rush, we do truly thank God for all that He's done. So tonight, I am truly thankful. I don't know about you. I don't know what the week is been like. I'm not really good, but I am truly thankful and truly appreciate the reason filled with a lot of complaining, not from us, but from other people that I've been hearing that gripe and complain about a lot of things, either at work or people in the world and all the different situations going on. But despite everything that is going on around us, these are smoke screens to try to detract us and to try to drag our attention away from the truth and from all that God has set before us. And even as we look at so many times that will be on the path away, and then the distraction will come up and they will get sidetracked. Yahshua, it's not time for us to get sidetracked, but now more than ever, to be stalwart warriors, ready to fight and defend the writings at all costs, and be the examples. We truly have to live the life. One of my favorite songs that you can sing is They Need to Know. I play that song often, I play it over and over, simply because there's so many people that need to know. And as I begin to think about how I've heard similar songs in the past from one of my favorite groups, Convention, the only thing is, the name that they call upon is not the name that the Lord has given us a cry out to. That is not the name that we're to call upon. And for so long, the focus has been always on JC and not always being turned back to the honor as it's supposed to be. So again, I am truly thankful that in spite of everything, when I begin to truly look away from the attractions and distractions that the enemy has put out there, anything in the news, it doesn't matter wherever it is, and begin to truly look at the Torah and look at all that the Alpha has set before us, I am truly thankful and truly grateful that we are still yet keeping and maintaining the course. So at this time, I ask everyone to repeat after me and say, I declare that no matter what the enemy tries to throw up before me, I will be steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the Torah. For I know that my labor is not in vain. Defeated, your darkness is scattered, and your wish is sovereign. Hallelujah. Let's have to give this sacrifice. Let's give truly what and we be thankful for all of these sacrifices. And at this time, we prepare to go into the writings. We want to move forward with a time for us as people to do the road, because He lets us know that we are those that always help and that on the side of Yahshua. At this time, we prepare to move forward. It is time for us to bring seed to our King, because He has given us great promises in His writings, that whenever we are magnificent givers, that we can never beat Him giving. Never, ever, never. Because He has always given us so much, and He always gives us so much more. And He always gives first. Hallelujah. And it is so. So at this time, we prepare to conceive to our King, as we do so, we do so according to His set of our writings. Even as it says in the book of Genesis, that as long as we shall be given unto us in measure, This time shake together and one word shall be humble, cause many given to my bosom. That's his number in the book of Malachi, that we be obedient and our tithe and offering, that he will open unto us the windows of Shemayim. He will pour out of the river, and shall not be able to receive it, and he will repeat it for our sake, and you shall not find kept store of the food and for the time in the field, says the sovereign of hosts. There he comes full circle in the book of Amos, and let us know that the time is coming in our ears, but the weaker shall overtake the sword. So as we come and saw seed, we don't understand that not only is it seed time, but what time is it? What time is it? It is truly harvest time. So for those of you that are here, blessing the people that come on our word and us, we give to you. For those of you that are here, our Lord, the mission here, hit the donate button, and thank you for the liberty giving. Excuse me for all the instructions in. And we thank you for those of you who prefer to use PayPal and email. Send us your information. We'll see what we call some accordingly. And again, It is now time for us to receive into our kingdom. As Jesus will us with the very kingdom where you are, we can see I'll be happy to thank you. We magnify you for your provision, for providing for us and bring that with security. We thank you out for all that you do and all that you've done, all that you've been going to do. We come to our honor because you said that we're willing and obedient, that we shall eat the greatness of the fatness of this land. We thank you that because we have given, we thank you that you are calling to give unto us great measure. Bless our ship together and let it go according to yourself. We thank you, Lord, we magnify you, and Lord, appreciate you right now for all that you do and all that you get going to do for us in the name of Yeshua. And it is so. And it is so. And it is so. Lord, Jesus, thank you. And we want to thank you that the Spirit of His word. Yes, you with us, you have a little sister that's moving in. So the reception may be a little bit laggy, you have to experience a little bit of buffering. So stick with us on Chris, allow you for the best, and just yet to come. And there are many that like to sing, and the sing is wonderful, the praise and the worship is from all and is great. But when we need to stand in we need His word to stand. This is what gives us our grounding and our foundation. So that our Lord gives us our because it is true in our word from the people this evening, and it is true in something that we all need to feast upon. So come, get your beans down on your neck, get your napkin ready, and that way get your spoon before you get life ready, because it's time for us to feast on this evening. As we prepare to receive prayer of life on this evening, it will be a tremendous honor to bring to your forefront one who is truly a phenomenal teacher and orator of the truth and the law of your So we come back and put your hands together and she's truly on the Lord to my life and she's the Lord to the life of all that come in contact with her. Put your hands together now as I go to your forefront. None other than my Lord, the Son of God, so the messengers of the Lord, speaking your way with these ministers, our very own apostle and simple prophetess. Hallelujah. Put your hands together and she can also pray.
let's worship Him. Come on, let's worship Him. Something that we need to learn to do is worship Him. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Come on, let's worship Him. Come on, He's worthy, He's worthy, He's worthy. Come on, He's worthy, He's worthy. Allah Yahuwah, Allah Yahuwah. Come on, let's praise Him, let's praise Him. Allah Yahuwah, you're worthy, you're worthy, you're worthy. Allah Yahuwah, Allah Yahuwah, you're worthy, you're worthy, you're worthy, you're worthy. You're worthy, you're worthy, you're worthy. Allah Yahuwah, you're worthy. Come on, let's praise Him. You're worthy, you're worthy, you're worthy. Allah Yahuwah, Allah Yahuwah. Worthy, 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 worthy. You're worthy. Worthy in my life. Worthy in my soul. How worthy you are. You started me on the way. You gave me life, and that's more abundantly. Gave me a reason, gave me a reason to sing a song. Allah Yahuwah, you're the reason, you're my reason. The person on through the bad and through the great, you're always the same. You're always the same. Worthy, worthy, worthy. No worthy in my life. Worthy in my soul. And leave your presence. You reminded us ever so gently of your promises and of your covenants. And for this we are so grateful. We are so grateful to be called the apple of your eye, to be called your chosen. As we stand before you this Layla, we ask Abba Yahuwah that you will give us dominion on sin, my transgressions, and let there be nothing negative between us and thee. As we continue to develop and grow, help us, Abba Yahuwah, to lay aside every weight and every sin that would so easily beset us, and run this race that you've given unto us with the patience that you have put down on the inside of us. Help us to not become weary in well-doing. Help us not to stray or abort the mission and the commission that you've placed upon our lives. You say, go here into all the land and preach the Besorah unto all our people, Yahshua. Give us a mouth to speak and ears to hear, and a heart to perceive your will in these end hours. For we are beyond end days. We are now in the final hours. Help us to remain committed and steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in your word, knowing that our labor is not in vain in you. Help us not to be shaken by the things we see or hear, but help us to remain grounded and fortified in your instructions. Help us to remember the purpose of Yahush in our lives and the Ruach HaKodesh. Help us never to desire to go back, but to remain and go forward. I adore you, Abba Yahuwah, for the breath of fresh air, that in spite of the stench that's in the air, you continue to allow your breath to permeate our lives. Breathe into us. Breathe into us this Layla, that we may continue to receive your instructions and move accordingly. We Torah you, Abba Yahuwah, for being who you are, and for your son, our Mashiach. We Torah you this Layla, in the precious name of Yahushua HaMashiach. And it is so. Come on, put your hands together and stir everything. Come on, stir everything at the same 30 and more. Who has gone up to my feet and come down? Who has gathered up the winds in the hollow of his hands? Who has wrapped up the waters in his cloak? Who has established all the ends of the earth? What is his name? And the name of his son. Tell me if you know. Do we know one? And the name of his son. Tell me if you know. Do we know one tonight? The name of the son. The name of the Yahweh. Do we know his name on tonight? Oh, praise him if you know. It is no longer a riddle. No longer in the question. But we know the name of the Yahweh and the name of and the Yahweh. I will lift up my voice and sing. Every opportunity that I'm working. He said, make a joyful noise. I praise him. Not only do I praise him, but I appreciate him. For if it had not been for him being on my side, where would I be? What would I have become? I appreciate him. For all that he's doing, all that he's done, all that he's yet going to do. I feel like I when his Isha ridicule were praising Abba Yahuwah because the Torah had been restored. And she looked at him and she was in disgust because he was praising Yahuwah. You know, at times when people look at you like, you know, we ain't supposed to do that. Maybe you're not supposed to do that. But I know what he's done for me. And I know all I have to do is think about his greatness. And my soul begins to cry out. Torah Empwerment for saving me. Truly knowing what it means to be saved. He said, but I'll be more than these. I'll be more dignified than this. He said, I will be, in other words, I will praise him, and it doesn't matter how you think or what you feel about it, I will praise him more and more. What you may look at as being undignified, Yahuwah looks at in a whole different manner. I appreciate it. I do. Oh, my soul and all that's within me, I will really say, Hallelujah. You're worthy, you're worthy. Because he's worthy, he's worthy, he's worthy, he's worthy, he's worthy. He's worthy. Yes, he is worthy. As we come to this portion of our class, I appreciate you for keeping us sane, keeping us in our right mind, keeping us from losing our mind, keeping us from losing hope. Because when you begin to hear a whole lot of negative stuff, and you're not careful, that negative stuff will try to come in and cause you to give up. But we keep hoping because we have belief. We believe in the instructions. Therefore, we live by them. We don't just talk about them, we live by them. It is the golden rule of our lives. It is the only rule of our lives. True believers understand. You're going to go through some things. But when the dust settles and the sky clears, you can truly say with everything in you, I know that Yahuwah lives. I know that he lives. Because he lives inside of me. I know he lives. Because Yahuwah introduced me to him. I know he lives. And he lives in me. And I'm going to give him the reign and the freedom that he deserves to do and say whatever he desires to do and say. And it is so. Come on, put your hands together. This portion to the Torah. Let us say this together. Baruch Yahuwah.
Baruch Yahuwah.
The Baruch one.
The Baruch one.
Baruch is Yahuwah.
Baruch is Yahuwah.
The Baruch one.
The Baruch.
For all eternity.
For all eternity.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Our supreme one.
Our supreme one.
King of the universe.
King of the universe.
Who selected us from all the peoples.
Who selected us from all the people.
And gave us his Torah.
He gave us his Torah.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Giver of the Torah.
Giver of the Torah.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Our supreme one.
Our supreme.
King of the universe.
King of the universe.
Who gave us the Torah of truth.
He gave us the Torah of truth.
And implanted eternal life within us.
And present eternal life within us.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Giver of the Torah.
Giver of the Torah.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Now we have the reading of the Ten Commandments done by Malachi Yashua. And it is so.
Come from Revelation chapter 5, verse 6 to 22. Excuse me. Aleph. I am Yahuwah your power, which brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim from the days of slavery. In fact, you shall have no other power before me. You shall not make you any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in Shemayim above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the mind beneath the earth. You shall not bow down yourself unto them nor serve them, for I Yahuwah your power and will tell us power. Visiting the iniquity of the outwards upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. And showing mercy unto thousands of them that heart me and keep my commandments. Amen. You shall not take the name of Yahuwah your power and falsify it. For Yahuwah will not hold them guiltless his name in image. That go out the Sabbath day to set it apart, as Yahuwah your power has commanded you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the 7th day is the Sabbath of Yahuwah your power. In it you shall not do any work. You, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your manservant, nor your maidservant, nor your ox, nor your ass, nor any of your cattle, nor your foreigner that is within your gates. Let your manservant and your maidservant may rest as well as you. And remember that you were a servant in the land of Mitzrayim, and that Yahuwah your power brought you out of there through a mighty hand and by a stretched out arm. Therefore Yahuwah your power commanded you to keep the Sabbath day. Hey, esteem your hour and your image, Yahuwah your power has commanded you, that your days may be prolonged and that they go well with you in the name which Yahuwah your power is about to give you. While you shall not murder, saying, neither shall you commit adultery. Yet, neither shall you steal. Yet, neither shall you bear false witness against your neighbor. Neither shall you desire your neighbor's issue, neither shall you covet your neighbor's bed, his field, or his manservant, or his maidservant, his ox, or his ass, or anything that is your neighbor's. These words were spoken to all your assembly in the mount out of the midst of the fire, of the cloud, and of the thick darkness with a great voice, and no more. And he wrote them in 2 tables of stone and delivered them unto me. And it is so.
And it is so. Come on, praise him. Come on, praise him, praise him. Come on, praise him, praise him, praise him. Praise him, praise him, praise him. Come on, his word, his worthy, he's worthy. Yes, you're worthy, you're worthy, you're worthy, you're worthy. You're worthy, you're worthy. Leviticus chapter 6. You're worthy, you're worthy, you're worthy. Come on, praise him. You don't have to stop praising him. Come on, you're worthy, you're worthy, you're worthy. Come on, he's worthy, he's worthy, he's worthy. Come on, he's worthy, he's worthy. Yes, he is, he's worthy, he's worthy, he's worthy. You're worthy, you're worthy, you're worthy, you're worthy. To bear 1-18, and it reads, these are the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments which Yahuwah, your power, commanded to teach you, that you might do them in the land where you are going to enter and possess it, that you might fear Yahuwah, your power, to keep all his statutes and his commandments, which I command you, you and your son and your grandson, all the days of your days may be prolonged. Hear therefore, O Yasharal, and observe to do it, that it may be well with you, and that you may increase mightily. Excuse me, as Yahuwah power of your Abbas has promised you in the land that flows with milk and honey. Shema Yasharal, Yahuwah, our power, is a God. Hear, O Yasharal, Yahuwah, our supreme one. Yahuwah is a God. And you shall have Yahuwah your supreme one with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words which I command you this day shall be in your heart. And you shall teach them diligently unto your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your bed, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be as frontlets in your eyes, to fall, to bind to the what? Bind to the mind. And you shall write them upon your bed and on your gates. And it shall be when Yahuwah brought you into the land which he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give you great cities which you did not build, houses full of all great things which you filled not. Excuse me, and wells dug which you dug. Vineyards and olive trees which you did not plant. When you shall have eaten and be full, then beware lest you forget Yahuwah, which brought you forth out of the land of Mitzrayim, from the bed of slavery. You shall fear Yahuwah your power, and serve him, and shall swear by his name. You shall not go after the power of the people which are round about you. For Yahuwah your power is a jealous power among you, lest the anger of Yahuwah your power be kindled against you, and he destroy you from off the face of the earth. Tempt Yahuwah as you tempted him at Massah. You shall diligently keep the commandments of Yahuwah your power, and his testimonies, and his statutes which he has commanded you. And you shall do that which is right in the sight of Yahuwah, that it may be well with you, and that you may go in and possess the great land, which Yahuwah swore to your fathers, and it is so. And it is so. Very important for us to remember and to understand. No matter what we face, and no matter where we find ourselves, never forget to keep his commands. So, it is so. Yahushua the son of Nun, chapter 1, verses 7 and 8. As I have tailored it to fit our time, we're going to read verse 7, that's verse 8. Only be you strong and very courageous, that you, according to all Moshe my servant commanded you, turn not to the right hand or to the left, that you may prosper wherever you go. Verse 8, as I have tailored it to fit a time of confession. No, I haven't taken anything or added anything to it, but just a time to make it personal. Repeat with me, I will not let this scroll of the Torah to do, according to all that is written in it. For then I shall make my way prosperous. And act wisely. Now look at me to your neighbor, you shall wisely. And you shall act wisely. Look at your other neighbor, take your other neighbor, you shall act wisely. And you shall act wisely. Take your hand and place it over your heart and say, Abba Yahuwah, I shall act wisely. Abba Yahuwah, I shall act wisely. Come on, Abba Yahuwah, I shall act wisely. I endeavor to act wisely. I endeavor to act wisely. I endeavor to act wisely. And it is so. And it is so. It is my greatest passion to act wisely. She provoke you to act unwise. But we must remember that we know who we are when we act like we know how to act. And so it is important that we truly understand the importance of acting wisely. Mishlei 15:8, the sacrifices of the wicked is an abomination, hateful and exceedingly offensive unto you, Abba Yahuwah. But the prayer of the upright did end. Jeremiah 14:17-18. Who is not meat and drink, but uprightness and shalom and joy in the Ruach Kodesh. For he in these things serve Yahuwah is acceptable to Yahuwah and approved of men. Mishlei 3:4, so shall you find esteem, great understanding, and high esteem in the sight or judgment of Yahuwah and men. And it is so. Yahuwah in Aleph 5:4-5, but whatsoever is born of Yahuwah overcometh the world, and this is the victory that overcometh the world. Even I will believe. Who is he that overcometh the world, but he that believeth that Yahush is the son of Yahuwah. Yahuwah in Aleph 2:5-6. But whoever keeps his Torah, truly the Ahava of Yahuwah is perfected in him. By this we know that we are in him. He who says he abides in him ought himself also to walk just as he walked. Verse 17, and the world passes away, and the lust of the will of Yahuwah abideth forever. Somebody say abideth forever.
Abideth forever.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Tehillim 34:15, the eyes of Yahuwah are upon the upright, and his ears are open unto our cry. Verse 17, the upright cry, and Yahuwah heareth, and delivereth us out of all our troubles. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. As we have come to this portion of our time of confession and prayer, praise, and worship unto the Abba, we want to do our affirmation, and from our affirmation, we want to do our declaration, and then we want to seal it with the instructions of Abba Yahuwah. Let us say our affirmations together. Repeat with me. I purpose to develop my Ruach.
I purpose to develop my Ruach.
I purpose to walk in the light of Torah.
I purpose to walk in the light of Torah.
I am Ibram.
I am Ibram.
I am born again.
I am born again.
I am Ibram.
I am Ibram.
I have the light of Yahuwah in my Ruach.
I have the life and nature of Yahuwah in my Ruach.
That light is the Torah of Yasharon.
The life is the Torah of Yasharon.
I purpose to walk in the Torah of life.
I purpose to walk in the Torah of life.
Yahuwah's Torah,
Yahuwah's Torah,
Yahush, is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's knowledge
Yahuwah's knowledge
is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's aha
Yahuwah's ahab
is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's power
Yahuwah's power
is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's wisdom
Yahuwah's wisdom
is in me.
is in me.
He is teaching me.
He is teaching me.
He is leading me.
He is leading.
I am a child of Yahuwah.
I am a child of Yahuwah.
The Ruach Kodesh of Yahuwah
The Ruach Kodesh of Yahuwah
in me is leading me.
in me is leading.
I'll follow her leading.
I'll follow her lead.
I'll walk in the Torah.
I'll walk in the Torah.
Yahush,
Yahush,
our Mashiach.
our Mashiach.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Now let us do our declaration of healing and shalom. Repeat with me, Abba Yahuwah,
Abba Yahuwah,
in the name of Yahush,
in the name of Yahush,
our Mashiach.
our Mashiach.
We subdue ignorance
We subdue ignorance
with Torah knowledge. And through this knowledge
and through this
of
knowledge
Torah truth,
of Torah truth.
we claim healing,
We claim healing,
shalom,
shalom,
deliverance,
deliverance,
and salvation.
and salvation.
We decree
Torah truth
in the lives
in the lives
of your people,
of your people,
our people, Yasharal.
Yasharal.
We unite,
We unite,
not
not to fight
each other,
each other,
but the enemy
but the enemy
of our belief.
of our belief.
And it is so,
And it is so.
and it is so.
And it is so.
We are Mishpakat. Mishpakut. We are family. And every family is going to have differences. Every family is going to see things different. But when it's all said and done, we are still a Mishpakot. And it's important that we act like it. And that we understand that we're still all learning and we're still all coming into His truth. And the more we learn, the more we will learn to get along. And the more we will learn to diffuse confusion and diffuse bickering and arguing. It's always a way to diffuse it. Always. And so we want to show forth the wisdom. And not just the wisdom, but the Ahab of Yahuwah in our lives. Very important for us to understand that. And it is so.
And it is so.
Let us bow before our King as we seal our praise, our worship, our time of confession, and our declaration before the Abba. Let us say this together. May the utterance of my mouth
May the utterance of my mouth
and the deliberation of my heart
and the deliberation of my heart
be desirable before you,
be desirable before you,
O Yahuwah,
O Yahuwah,
my Ra
my rock
and my Redeemer.
and my redeemer.
May the utterance of my mouth
May the utterance of my mouth
and the deliberation of my heart
and the deliberation of my heart
be desirable before you,
be desirable before you,
O Yahuwah,
O Yahuwah,
my Ra
my rock
and my Redeemer.
and my redeemer.
And it is so.
And it is so.
We have just recited Tehillim 19 and 15, and it is so.
And it is so.
You may be seated in His presence. Once again, we do appreciate our Yahuwah for bringing us back to this place at His appointed time. It's always a great thing to be in the presence of our Ak and Akodi, to be able to share what He has given unto me to give unto you. Always an esteem to learn and to be able to share and to bring clarity to the hearts and minds of us, the people of Yasharal, so that we can diffuse, destroy, debunk, and tear down many of things that have kept us almost, I hate to use the word, as rivals. Because we see things from where we sit.
Right.
But at the same time, we understand we also see things from how we were taught. And so if we were taught, if we were taught in a certain way, then the way we were taught is going to be the reflection of our response or reaction to something that may come off a little different than what we have learned. And because sometimes we really don't know how to respond, we react.
That's right.
And all the time, it is not necessary to react. Sometimes you just need to respond. If it's something we don't know or something we're not familiar with, that is not the time to try and destroy somebody with our words or with the knowledge that we believe that we have acquired from our Yahuwah through Yahushua Mashiach. I want us to turn our attention to Yashia 53. And we're going to continue with this line of discovery and learning. As I was praying and truly we've been in this teaching for about 2 weeks now, I believe. And before I came into this teaching, I was praying, asking of Yahuwah for wisdom and asking Him to show me how to bring clarity to many of things that have hurt us and continue to hurt many of us. And that is the debunking and the teaching against the life of Yahushua. And when we began to look at foundation, you have to understand foundation is very important. Without a foundation, a house and anything else cannot stand. Foundation is what is built in order for everything else to be able to come along and stand. when you stand on the sand, you have not much stability, and you don't have that much of a foundation, because sand gives way because of pressure.
That's right.
Sand changes because of pressure, and changes because of how we stand on it or how we move. But a solid foundation, no matter how we move, will not change. It will not give a structure, but it will maintain its structure, maintain its foundation. It will maintain its form. It will not change. And because our foundation has been messed with, it's important that we go back and find where this problem came about, that recognition can be made, and we can begin to build and move in the manner that Abba Yahuwah has commissioned us to do so.
That's right.
I've heard of many people from last year, because they found out that he was not real and that he was not the son of Yahuwah differently. And it grieves the heart, because it said in the latter days, many will give heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils.
That's right.
And so one of the things, like I say, that is really heartbreaking is these are people that were walking in this in truth, and they listened to somebody else, and they began to listen to somebody that had no understanding of the writings, and began to promote and push this. And because the person or the people were open, they ended up falling for a lie. You have to understand, before Yahushua can come back, we gotta be walking in truth. All of us, not just some of us. Now, with that being said, many people will say, well, everybody's not gonna come right. Everybody's not gonna do right. But everybody's gonna know truth. And everybody's will never be able to say, I didn't know. But if you say, I chose not to accept that truth, then that's going to fall on you. But nobody will ever be able to say, without lying, that this was not presented to me in this manner.
Right.
Because you have to understand, when Yahuwah allows Yahushua to come back, he's coming back for us, those of us that are looking for him. But if you're not looking for him, then you're not expecting him to come back. Because you're not believing that he's real. And once again, this is something that has come and has about crippled many of our people because of this very chapter. Because we have read it according to somebody else's interpretation. And in allowing the interpretation of these individuals, we have basically dropped our guard, and we have allowed their interpretation to lead us from the one true person that can bring us into the right relationship with Abba Yahuwah, and that is his son. And so we're going to begin, and we're going to read chapter 53 of Yasha'ah, 1 through 12. And this is going to set the platform again, and then we're going to go and look at how did this all come about. When I tell you, it is amazing how things can change from one time period to the next. And if left unchallenged, if left undealt with, the last time frame or the last period that this thing was dealt with, if it is not challenged and brought forth, then guess what? Then those of us that began to learn from this individual or these individuals will end up picking up that what they basically left or they put in place of truth, and then we will begin to promote that, and before you know it, we have just basically thwarted and we have just changed the foundation.
That's right.
Because we picked up where they left off at. So it's important that we understand, one, pray, two, be open to the Ruach Kodesh. Because if we're not open to the Ruach Kodesh, the Ruach of Yahuwah, then we're already doomed and lost.
That's right.
That's right.
So it's important that we understand. And like I said, my prayer is that this will bridge the gap that the enemy is trying to not just bridge a gap, he's trying to destroy the bridge.
Yes.
so that there is no way to return back over. So if the bridge is destroyed, how will you return? So he's given this to me and to others, because I'm not the only one that has taught this, but it is important that we understand. Once again, I pray that as you listen, that you would listen attentively.
Yes.
And that you would listen with your heart and listen to what is being brought forth. First of all, we're going to listen to the prophet Yashaya in chapter 53. And then we're going to hear the interpretation from some of those that their views. And it is so.
And it is so.
All right, let's start at chapter 53, please. Starting with verse 1. 6.
Who hath believed our report? And to whom is the arm of Yahuwah revealed? For he shall grow up before him as a tender plant, and as a root out of a dry ground. He has no form nor comeliness, and when we shall see him, there is no beauty that we should desire him. He is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows, and acquainted with grief, and we hid as it were our faces from him. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he hath borne our griefs and carried our sorrows. Yet we did esteem him stricken, smitten of Yahuwah, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions, he was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone to his own way, and Yahuwah has laid on him the iniquity of us all. And it is so.
And it is so. All right, now we're going to go to the next one. I want to show you something. Now, in chapter 53, verse 4, many renderings says, truly he has borne our grief. In this rendering, it says, truly he has borne our sicknesses. Sicknesses. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
And carried our pains. And in this one, it says, carried our sorrows. Yet we reckoned him, and this one said, yet we did esteem him stricken, smitten by power, and afflicted. So you have to look at some of the words that were changed or replaced. Whenever we replace, or whenever words are replaced, and I want to throw this in as we prepare so we can look at certain things and just keep our hearts open and just look at the different renderings. Now, in the King James Bible, I want to read this one. Excuse me. I got 3 of them open before me. In this one, surely he took up our infirmities and carried our sorrows. Yet we considered him stricken by Yahuwah, smitten by him, and afflicted. So you have 1, 2, 3. 3 different renderings of Yashaya.
Right.
53. And wherever we are or wherever we sit and however we bring this in is how we're going to interpret it. So when you see born our grief, the first thing we think about when we think about grief is a person that is grief-stricken, full of sorrow, full of hurt. Okay? Then when you look at infirmities, an infirmity is a sickness.
Right.
So infirmity is closer to sickness than grief is. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
So when these things, sometimes we read and we come across different interpretations. Now the reason why I'm saying this, because as we continue to read, you're going to see why I'm saying this. When we read the interpretations, sometimes we take it for face value right there. And we cannot at times connect the description of Yashaya 53 with Yahush. And what we're going to bring out, and what I want to bring out and show you, is that Yashaya 53 is a description of the Mashiach and not Yahshua. And that's why I'm saying when we read, we have to look at each word, and we have to look at it, and you have to understand this is English, so we're going from the English perspective. Now I know many will say, well, you got to look at it from the Hebrew too. We are going to look at it from the different interpretations of it.
Right. That's what we're going to look at. Now, once again, it's important that we understand how it was interpreted. Because once again, however it was interpreted and however we perceive it is how we are going to interpret it.
Right.
And if we see it as in one rendering or in one interpretation, and we take that and we look at it and someone brings to us, for instance, well, this is talking about Yahshua. If the interpretation lines up with the description because of the wording, then we are more apt to follow it because what? It, from our perspective, looks like they have to be talking about Yahshua.
Right.
But you have to understand, we're looking at this from 3 to 4 different interpretations. And we're going to find out why the interpretations became the way they did. So we want to finish reading. I guess I just wanted to put that in. Everybody understands what it says?
Yes.
All right, let's read from 7 to 12.
Yahshua, chapter 53, verse 7 to 12.
Mm-hmm.
He was oppressed and he was afflicted, but he did not open his mouth. He was led as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before its shearer is silent. But he did not open his mouth. He was taken from prison and from judgment. And for his generation, who considered that he shall be cut off from the land of the living. For the transgression of my people he was stricken. And he was appointed a grave with the wrong and with the rich at his death, because he had done no violence, nor was deceit in his mouth. Verse 10. But Yahuwah was pleased to crush him. He laid sickness on him, that when he had made himself an offering for guilt, he would see a seed. He would prolong his day, and the pleasure of Yahuwah prosper in his hand. He would see the result of the suffering of his life and be satisfied. Through his knowledge, my righteous servant makes many righteous, and he bears the crookedness. Verse 12. Therefore I give him a portion among the great, and he divides the spoil with the strong, because he poured out his being unto death, and he was counted with the transgressors, and he bore the sin of many and made intercession for the transgressors. And it is so.
And it is so. Now, looking and reading chapter 53 of Yahshua. Now, that is not the description of Yahshua.
Right.
And I am Yahshua. That is not a description of us. That is a description of the Abba. Of Yahush. Not of the Abba, of Yahush, our Mashiach.
Right.
Because we're going to talk about that too, as time permits. Very important for us to understand as we continue to walk in a place of recovery, restoration, and true revival. It is important that we recover the true, not just our identity, but recover the true essence and the truth of our instructions and our writings. Without the truth of the writings, we are like a ship without sail.
That's right.
Now, we're going to go into a comparison of ancient and medieval Jewish interpretations of the suffering servant in Yahshua that I have found to be so enlightening. Last week, we talked about the Midrash on Tehillim, and we brought forth the verses that help to establish and bring forth the parallel, because many of these verses are used to parallel and to compare. And so in order to bring forth a balanced debunking, you have to see both sides. I'm not debating with anybody, but this is a time to debunk false teaching. And in order to debunk false teaching, you got to have both sides. You cannot just come with one side. You got to show where the error begins and where truth left off, or where truth was left off, in order to get a solid foundation and for people to understand. Because if you just come with truth, then people will not be able to see where the error began and how where it started and where it took place at. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand that. Now, once again, we looked at the word midrash. And midrash is an ancient commentary on part of the Hebrew scriptures attached to the biblical text. Make sure you listen at that.
Mm-hmm.
The earliest midrashim come from 2nd century AD, although much of their content is older. Now, once again, this is an attachment to the biblical text. So, when you read and we look, and if anybody has, like I say, I have 1, 2, 3. One that does not have a full text that has the parallel verses to go with it, or the reference scriptures. Then I have another one that has about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. For each verse, it has a reference scripture to help reference what is being said. Now, with that being said, somebody will say, well, what we need those. Absolutely. I am not speaking against that. We need it. But the problem comes in is when the reference scriptures that are placed with it were placed there to thwart or to change the interpretation of the verse, or to put the description, or to change where it rightfully is to be directed in another place. Am I making sense? Now, with that being said, this is why when we look at it, and I'm going to go back over the midrash of Tehillim. A number of references are made to Yashia's servant songs in this work. We understand as we went from the very beginning, and I would pray that you go back and look at the beginning of this teaching, Yashia 53, the suffering servant, so that you can understand from beginning to middle as we continue to move forward. The importance of understanding each one of these interpretations is going to help us to lock down and find out where the problem came in, and why was the description changed and placed on Yasharal and taken off Yahush. Okay? And so this is how this came about. Now, we're looking at the servant song found in Yashia. In 2 of the occurrences, allusions is made so as to identify the servant. As we looked in Tehillim 2 and 9, references both to Yashia 42 and 1 and 52 and 13. Someone get that for me quickly. Tehillim 2 and 9. And I want us to get that so you can understand what I'm talking about real quick. Once again, 2 and 9. It's important that we find the reference scriptures so that when we're talking, you will understand, because many people have rebutted, as I've stated, that Yashia 53 is talking about Yahush. Many say it is not. It is talking about Isaiah or Yashia. Many have said it is talking about Zerubbabel, and then many have said it is speaking about Yasharal, and even others in that time. But we're going to bring this thing once again to a head. 2 and 9 reads, break them with a rod of iron, dash them to pieces like a potter's vessel. Tehillim 2 and 9. Reference to both Yashia 42 and 1 and 52 and 13. Now, let's look at Yashia 42 and 1 real quick. And this is to parallel and to substantiate what is being said. All right, 42 and 1. When you have it saying it is so.
Yes, so.
All right, read that for me, please. Yashia 42 and 1. And someone get 52 and 13. All right, 42 and 1. Behold my servant whom I uphold, my elect in whom my soul delights. I have put my ruach upon him. He shall bring forth right ruling to the nations. 42 and 1, Yashia. Now 52 and 13. Mm-hmm. Come on.
52 and 13 reads,
Mm-hmm.
Behold, my servant shall deal prudently. He shall be exalted and extolled and be very high.
And it is so. Now, let's look once again. What are we comparing? What is being said here that we need to be able to look at these three references? Tehillim 2 and 9 says, break them with the rod, dash them into pieces like a potter's vessel. When you go into Yashia 42 and 1, what does it say again? Mm-hmm.
This is, behold my servant, whom I uphold, mine elect, in whom my soul delighted. I have put my ruach upon him, and he shall bring forth judgment to the Gentiles.
All right. Now, 52 and 13. Behold, my servant shall deal prudently. He shall be exalted and extolled and be very high. Now, the phrase, thou art my son, the Midrash quotes in Shema 4 and 22. Somebody get 4 and 22 for me, which is Exodus. To establish a parallel between the term son and Yasharal. 4 and 22. Shema, which is Exodus.
And it is so.
Read that for me, please. You have it?
Yes.
Come on, read it.
Shema 4, verse 22. So I say to you, let my son go to serve me. But if you refuse to let him go, see, I am killing your son, your firstborn. And it is so.
And it is so. Now, next, the Yashia passages are used to connect the idea of servant with Yasharal, having equated the psalmist's son and Yashia's servant with Yasharal. The Midrash distinguishes between the king who fulfills all this and the Mashiach who occupies himself with the Torah. Again, the Mashiach is presented as an individual distinct from the nation. However, in this Midrash, he is not identified as a king. Now remember, what is Midrash? It is a commentary. It is a commentary, an ancient commentary on part of the Hebrew scriptures attached to the biblical text. So these are the writings, and they attach them and put them and then bring forth an explanation for it. Okay? Now listen what it says. Reference is found in Tehillim 42, 43, and 5, to Yashia 42 and 1, in connection with redemption. Let's look at 42, and then we're going to look at Tehillim 42 and move forward. Now it's 42 to 43 and 5. It's 11 verses in chapter 42 and 5 in chapter 40.
And it is so.
All right, read all chapter 42 for me, and then somebody read chapter 43 for me.
Tehillim chapter 4.
Mm-hmm.
As the hart panteth after the water brooks, so panteth my soul after thee, O Yahuwah. My soul thirsteth for power, the living Savior. When shall I come and appear before Yahuwah? My tears have been my meat day and night, while they continually say unto me, where is thy power? When I remember these things, I pour out my soul in me. For I had gone with the multitude. I went with them to see the house of power, with the voice of joy and praise. With the multitude they kept the Kodesh day. Why art thou cast down, O my soul? And why art thou disquieted in me? Hope thou in Yahuwah, for I shall yet praise him for the help of his countenance. O my power, my soul is cast down within me. Therefore will I remember thee from the land of Yardan, and of the Hermonites, and of the hill Mizar. Deep calleth unto all thy waves, and thy billows are gone over me. Yet Yahuwah will command his ahab and kindness in the daytime, and in the night his song shall be with me, and my prayer unto the power of my life. Verse 9, I will say unto Yahuwah my rock, why hast thou forgotten me? Why go I mourning because of the oppression of the enemy? As with the sword in my bones, my enemies approach me, while they say daily unto me, where is thy power?
Why art thou cast down, O my soul, and why art thou disquieted within me? Hope thou in Yahuwah, for I shall yet praise him, who is the health of my countenance and my Savior. And it is so.
And it is so. Once again, verse 11 says, why are you depressed, O my being? He's asking himself a question. And why are you restless within me? Wait for power, for I shall yet thank him, the deliverance of my face and my power. Now, once again, it is important that we understand this is connecting it as a redeemer, connecting it with redemption. Now, 43 and 5. And we're going to look at Yashia 42 and 1. Get that for me, please. (43) 1 through 5 says, rule me rightly, O power, and plead my cause against a nation without kindness. O deliver me from a man of deceit and lawlessness. For you are my power, for you are the power of my strength. Why have you rejected me? Why do I go mourning because of the oppression of the enemy? Send forth your light and your truth. Let them lead me. Let them bring me to your set apart mountain and to your dwelling places, that I might come to the altar of power, to all the joy of my delight, and praise you with the lyre, the alim, to praise you. Power, my Elohim. We don't say it. Why are you depressed, my being? And why are you restless with me? Wait for power, for I shall yet thank him, the deliverance of my face and my power. Now, 42 and 43 are talking in reference to what? Redemption. When you go to Yashia 42 and 1, let us go there. All right, read 42 and 1 for me.
Behold my servant, whom I uphold, mine elect, in whom my soul delighteth. I have put my ruach upon him. He shall bring forth judgment to the Gentiles.
And it says, and in one rendering, it says to the nations, which you know he's talking about us.
Yes.
Okay. Now, very important to understand. Past redemption, from Mitzrayim is used to introduce the concept of future redemption. The Midrash envisions a parallel between the two redemptions. Two redeemers, Moshe and Haran, were used in the past. Consequently, two redeemers are to be expected in the future. One future redeemer is identified as Eliah, who was of the house of Haran. The second is Mashiach, son of Dawood, as is evident from Yashia 42 and 1. Once again, the Mashiach is presented as a future individual of royal descent who will be instrumental, in Yasharal's redemption. Targum. Now you have to understand this is another medium in which we draw the reference to the Mashiach being the one that is spoken of in Yashia 53. I'm sorry. Now someone may say, what is the Targum? The Targum, an ancient Aramaic paraphrase or interpretation of the Hebrew Bible, of a type made from about the 1st century AD, when Hebrew was declining as a spoken language. Are y'all following?
Yes.
This is sort of like them paraphrasing it. Somebody would say, well, why are we using this? Because you have to understand, even they give or allude to Yashia 53 speaking the Mashiach individual and not a nation. Okay?
Yes.
All right. Once again, this is speaking of the Targum, an ancient Aramaic paraphrase or discussion, even more. All right. The Targumist or Levi points out that references to the servant as the Mashiach in the Targum are far from being ambiguous. He observes the Targumist never did have any doubt or uncertainty as to what he meant in his interpretations. If he felt that a text carried a messianic or the Mashiach meaning, he said so unmistakably. The Targum mentions the Mashiach without restraint, where the interpreter feels that a Mashiach meaning is present or implied in the text. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Even someone, are y'all following me, of this caliber would speak and allude to it and say without a doubt This is alluding to the Mashiach. All right. Levy summarizes the Mashiach teaching of the Torah as follows. In the Pentateuch, Mashiach is a symbol of security, culture, and refinement, as well as a leader who will restore the political and military strength of Yasharal. In the prophets, Mashiach is not only a symbol of shalom and harmony in the world as a righteous judge, but also a beautiful Mashiach, who is not only the champion of justice, righteousness, and the Torah, but who is a warrior who despoils the enemies of his people and restores sovereignty. He also intercedes with Yahuwah for the sins of his people and brings them back to the right path, for he has the power to dispense personal reward and punishment. That does not sound like Yasharal. That sounds like Yahush, our Mashiach. And so it is important, once again, that we look at all areas that are speaking this and bringing forth this knowledge. In order to have a well-rounded discussion, not a debate, we have to see all points. Yes. All points. Even if it does say round, there's still points on it. That's right. We have to see all of it from every angle. Now, once again, why is this important? Because many have used Yashiyah 53 to debunk the life of Yahush. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Because when it says, who hath believed our report, and who hath the arm of Yahuwah been revealed? Many people do not believe that the arm is speaking of Yahush. But we know it is. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
All right. He further notes that the Mashiach will be the symbol and or the active agent of the deliverance of Yahshua. You have to understand, look at the characteristic of his summary of the teachings of the Mashiach. He is a symbol of security, culture, and refinement, as well as a leader who restores the political and military strength of Yasharal. See, you got to remember, we had all of these things functioning, and all of them were balanced because they were based upon the instructions of Abba Yahuwah. But we went into default because our ancestors and forefathers forgot, willfully forgot, to keep the instructions of Abba Yahuwah. So now you have to understand, Yahush is coming to bring restoration from every area of our lives. Even that what we would believe has no relevance, but it does, because we were a political people. You have to understand the kings in that time, and even the matriarchs and patriarchs of that time, they had to have political things going on. They had to be able to make alliances. That's politics. They had to be able to deal with people of other nationalities. That's politics. If you want to cross my land, that's politics. Because we got to have certain decrees and laws in place in order so we can have an agreement that you don't come trying to squat on what's mine. That's politics. May be basic, but it is still politics. So he's coming to bring restoration in those areas. He is a champion of justice, righteousness, and the Torah. He is also a warrior who despoils the enemy of his peoples and restores sovereignty. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
And he intercedes with Yahuwah for the sins of us, his people, and brings us back to the right path. For he has the power to dispense personal reward and punishment. Very important for us to understand these things. Don't limit him. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
He further notes that the Mashiach will be a symbol and or active agent of the deliverance of Yasharal. He will be of Davidic lineage, though he may not have a non-Davidic predecessor. Now, I want to take a break right there for a moment, and I want to show you something. When we look at the Davidic lineage, we always look at the Davidic lineage through Joseph. And the reason being is because you have so many people that believe that it is his story and not our story. Are you hearing me? Yes. When Yahuwah brought Yasharal out of Mitzrayim, he didn't just bring the men out, he brought the women out as well. He brought out the nation which was encompassed of men, women, and children, and a whole nother nation that didn't belong but wanted to tag along. Now I want us to turn our attention to, let me see, do I want to, let us look at, let's look at Matthew 1 and 21, and then Luke 1, 5 and 36. Matthew 53 and 1. May have it send it so. Matthew, which is Matthew 1 and 21, which is Matthew 1 and 21.
And it is so.
All right. Read that for me.
Matthew chapter 1, verse 21. And she shall bring forth the son, and I shall call his name Yahush, for he shall save his people from their sins. And it is so.
And it is so. Now, she shall have a son. Now, many of you may know where I'm going with this, and many of you may not. Miriam, who was the Ima of Yahush, after the angel appeared, or the Malach appeared to Joseph concerning this, because Joseph was the son, Joseph, you son of Dawood, fear not to take Miriam as your Isha, verse 20. For that which is conceived in her is of the set apart spirit, or the Ruach Kodesh. And she shall bring forth a son, and you shall call his name Yahush, for he shall save his people from their sins. Now, all this was done that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken of Yahuwah by the prophet, saying, behold, a virgin shall be with child. Now, be with child is one of the number one things that people tend to say, that she was already with child. She was not already with the child. Because if she was, she would have been stoned. Now, mind you, this is the very reason why Joseph wanted to put her away privately, because he thought that she had already been pregnant before he had basically, I don't want to use the word engaged, but before he had betrothed her. And this is why Yahuwah had to send a messenger to appear for him before him. Yahuwah appeared to him in a dream, saying, don't be afraid, son of Dawood, to take her. Now, the reason this is important for us to understand is because you have to understand, Joseph was the stand-in Abba. Yahuwah was the Abba, but Yahush was all flesh. Now, the reason I want to go here is because I want to show you something about Miriam. Let us look at Luke 1, chapter 1, and we'll look at 5 and 36. Now, at the same time, before this, the Malach had appeared to Rebecca. Let me get her name right. Let me go back. Let's go to Luca. Luca 1, chapter 1, and we'll look at verse 5 and we'll go 36. Okay. Verse 5. And then we're going to jump all the way down to 36. All right, let me get there now. Elizabeth, her cousin. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Her cousin. All right. Let's read 1 and 5. And it is so.
There was in the days of Herod, the king of Judea, a certain Kohen named Zacharias, of the course of Abia, and his wife was of the daughters of Aharon.
Read that again.
And his wife was of the daughters of Aharon, and her name was Elizabeth.
Elizabeth. I said Rebecca. I'm sorry, Elizabeth. Read that again.
Luke chapter 1, verse 5.
Mm-hmm.
There was in the days of Herod, the king of Judea, a certain Kohen named Zacharias, of the course of Abia, and his wife was of the daughters of Aharon, and her name was Elizabeth.
Read verse 6.
And they were both righteous before Yahuwah, walking in all the commandments and ordinances of Yahuwah blameless.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they had no child, because that Elizabeth was barren, and they both were now well stricken in years.
Now, I want to bring something to our attention. Now, it only alludes to, and I would wonder why, that they would change and not give you the lineage of Miriam, but would give you the lineage of Elizabeth, which was a daughter of Haran. If Elizabeth was a daughter of Haran, surely Miriam had to come through the same lineage, the same bloodline. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Which qualified her to be the Ima of Yahush. Y'all follow me?
Yes.
This is why it is important that you understand that he can't be disqualified no matter how you try to slice it. Because his Ima was of the lineage of the Lewites. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Because was not Haran a priest?
Yes. Yes.
So if Elizabeth was the daughter and Miriam is the cousin, are y'all following me?
Yes.
She is of the same what? Bloodline. So the Mashiach bloodline, direct descendant through the bloodline, came through Miriam. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
And not a stepfather. So for people that was trying to connect dots and say, well, it was through Joseph, it was given because Joseph's bloodline had to be recorded. But it is amazing to me that Miriam's bloodline was not recorded, but her cousins would be. She was a family, so that means she is a descendant of Haran. Are you following me?
Yes.
Meaning that she had the right blood in her system to bring forth the Mashiach. Does that make sense?
Yes.
People may not like it, but it's the truth. There's no way she could be a cousin of Elizabeth and not have the same blood. Specifically, it says that she was the daughter of who? Aharon. Of the course of Abiyah, and his wife was of the daughters of Haran. So, she's family. That means Miriam is also one of the daughters, or a descendant of Haran. Y'all follow me?
Yes.
Which qualified her to be the Ima of Yahush. So for everybody that was saying, well, she had a husband and had a man to impregnate her. No. When she said, for I have not known a man, she was not lying. Are you following me?
Yes.
She had not known a man. And therefore, this is what happened. Now, let's read on a little further. Let's go to 36. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
I mean, it's all right if people don't want to agree with it. That's fine.
And it is.
But it is the truth. All right, verse 36. Let's read.
Verse 36.
Mm-hmm.
And behold, thy cousin Elizabeth, she hath also conceived a son in her old age. And this is the 6th month with her who was called barren.
Now, if the Malach would say, this is your cousin, make reference to this, that means it's of importance. Y'all follow me?
Yes.
It is of importance to know her lineage and to know where she comes from. Her cousin Elizabeth, or Elisheba, has also conceived a son in her old age. The relevance here is it shows the lineage of Miriam as being a daughter or a descendant of Haran, which was of the priestly order. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Now, let's read. Let's read verse 37. Let's read all the way. Let's read 37 to Let's read verse 37 and 30. 37, 38, 39. And then we're going to jump down because I want to show you something.
Verse 37. For with Yahuwah nothing shall be impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And Mary said, Behold the handmaid of Yahuwah, be it unto me according to thy word. And the malak departed from her.
Mm-hmm.
And Miriam arose in those days and went into the hill country with haste, into a city of Yehuda. And it is so.
Okay, now let us go down. Let's finish reading. Let's read all of it. Read 40 all the way to. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's read. To 51.
Verse 40.
Mm-hmm.
And entered into the house of Zacharias and saluted Elizabeth. And it came to pass that when Elizabeth heard the salutation of Mary, the babe leaped in her womb, and Elizabeth was filled with Ruach HaKodesh. And she spake out with a loud voice and said, Baruch art thou among women, and Baruch is the fruit of thy womb. And whence is this to me that the mother of thy Savior should come to me? For lo, as soon as the voice of thy salutation sounded in my ears, the babe leaped in my womb for joy. And Baruch is she that believed, for there shall be a performance of those things which were told from Yahuwah, which told her from Yahuwah.
Mm-hmm.
And Miriam said, My soul doth magnify Yahuwah, and my ruach hath rejoiced with Yahuwah my Savior, for he hath regarded the low estate of his handmaiden. For behold, from henceforth all generations shall call me Baruch. For he that is mighty hath done to me great things, and Kodesh is his name. And his mercy is on them that fear him from generation to generation. He hath showed strength with his arm.
Stop right there. Verse 51, say that again.
He hath showed strength with his arm.
He has showed strength with his arm. Who is she speaking of?
Yahush.
She's speaking of Yahush. Even his Ema, while carrying him, knew who he was. If we go back to Yashiyah 53, we see the arm. Are you following me?
Yes.
Let's read that again. 51.
He hath showed strength with his arm.
Mm-hmm.
He hath scattered the proud in the imagination of their hearts.
Okay, 52. Sorry.
He hath put down the mighty from their seats, and exalted them of low degree.
Mm-hmm. 53, go ahead, read it.
He hath filled the hungry with great things, and the rich he hath sent empty away. He hath holpen his servant Yasharal in remembrance of his mercy, as he spake to our Abbas, to Abraham, and to his seed forever. And Miriam abode with her about 3 months, and returned to her own house.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Now, once again, all of these, this description is the description you can also reference back to Yashiyah 53. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
You can see this clearly. This can be referenced back to Yashiyah 53, showing the description of Yahush. Out of her own mouth, he has shown strength with his arm. Talking about Yahuwah, showing strength with his arm, which is Yahush the Mashiach. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important for us to see. As she said, even in this, for he has regarded the low estate of his handmaiden, for behold, from henceforth all generations shall call me Baruch. For he that is mighty has done to me great things, and set apart is his name. And his mercy is on them that fear him from generation to generation. He has showed strength with his arm. He has scattered the proud in the imagination in their hearts. Look at what he's done. He has scattered the proud in the imagination of their hearts. So to scatter means you just push out there. Where? In the heart. When your heart, when the imagination, you have to understand, the imagination is a powerful thing. Very powerful. He has scattered the proud in the imagination of their hearts. He scattered them. So in their imagination, because they are proud, many cannot accept and receive truth. Why? Because they are proud. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
And when you begin to imagine things out of the heart, and if your imagination it has been tampered with or has been directed in another path, you won't be able to think right. You won't be able to focus. This is why I believe many have been scattered. Many of their imaginations that have been burnt out of the heart has been scattered, and that's why many cannot retain and hold on to the truth of who Yahush is. Because they are proud, and they remain proud. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
It is sad, but it is the truth. And so we see here, even out of the mouth of Miriam, she speaks of the arm, which is Yahush. And even when we look, as we look at this, and we see the Davidic lineage, we also see, though it was recorded through, or they gave the lineage of Joseph, we also have a direct connection with her to Haran through her cousin Elizabeth. Are y'all following me?
Yeah.
Which qualifies her. It does not disqualify her. It was removed. And you have to understand, people do things for different reasons. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
All right. Now, though he may have a non-Davidic predecessor, the Ephraimite Mashiach who will die in battle, the Mashiach will bring an end to the wandering of Yasharal, and the Ephraim people will be gathered in from their dispersion to their own land. The Mashiach will live eternally. He will restore the temple and rebuild Jerusalem. The Mashiach will be a righteous judge, dispensing justice and equity, the champion of the poor and the oppressed, and the personification of social justice. So we know that Yasharal cannot do that, because we have to be restored in that first. Because we have experienced, and we've seen, and we know people that have experienced social injustice. We know people that have suffered from rejection. Because sometimes seriously, and if we be truthful, sometimes many of us have felt rejected by our very own. We were talking a while back, months back, and we were talking about when you look at social media. What is social media? Social is at the beginning, meaning that we are on here to socialize. But many people don't know how to socialize. We take socializing as being, throw up 50 billion memes, and this is how we socialize. And then when something becomes overwhelming to us, that's when we want to talk. Well, I have to admit, I am not one that does a lot of talking. But when it is time, I can and I will. But this is why when we look at social media, it is a platform that could really be used to really draw us as a people close together. If we just would use it in the manner. I don't believe every 5 or 10 minutes we should have to post a post. I believe that there are times that we ought to just give a salutation, greetings. And I've seen them, and I'm not saying everybody's like that. Please don't get me wrong. But go on and say, shalom, ak shalom, Akodi. How is your day? Make it to where we make ourselves approachable, to where we can socialize. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
You have to understand there's so much stuff that's being propagated and promoted. And we have to understand, if you stand secure and sound in your walk, then if somebody come crossways, you know how to diffuse that.
That's right.
Yes.
And you don't have to destroy your person. You just put them in their place and let them know. And we can keep on moving on. But when we look at learning how to socialize, learning how to communicate, learning how to deal with one another, It's one of the things that is so important for us to build a strong and healthy relationship.
Yes.
Very important. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
We miss these things because we look at social media as being only a workplace, only a place that I'm supposed to just minister. And don't get me wrong when I say minister all the time, because we're supposed to. Are you following me?
Yes.
But there are times that somebody may want to ask you a question that has nothing to do with your post. But if we are unapproachable and people think I can't ask you this or I can't talk to you because all I see is you putting this up, then people will tend to shy away. Are you following me?
Yes.
This is why we have to make ourselves approachable, sociable, where we're able to deal with people, where people won't believe, well, they ain't gonna say nothing, I got a post today that said, today was Sisters Day, and share it to 12 sisters about, how you hug them. And and though my daughters are not my sisters, I still send it to them, and I send it to others. Why? Because we want people to know that we're touchable, we're tangible. We're here for one another, not just when times get rough, but before that storm kicks up, we need to know that we're there, and not only that time. So it's important that we understand these things. Are y'all hearing me?
Yeah.
So if he's not it, but when he brings social justice, you have to understand why. Because so many people have felt social injustice. You go to ask a person a question, and if sometimes some of us don't always have, couth in certain areas. I'll give a person a chance all day long. But if you come left, I'm going right, because I'm not going to go left. Off. And people be like, you didn't even have to go off. I just asked the question. Now when you say or do things, you almost have to put up a disclaimer. You almost have to put a full word up there before you post. First of all, this is not for debate. It is just information. Take it or leave it. It is your choice. Because if not, you will have 500 comments, and every one of those comments, maybe 2% of those comments will be maybe so, but the rest will be arguments, and if the arguments are not people arguing with you, they'll be arguing among themselves. That's not building social, that's not building a healthy social life on the media. That's actually breaking down the social connection on the media. I'm a person, I like to deal with people in person. But I'll talk to people anytime. I have no problem. My own thing is that if you ask me a question and I give you the answer, accept it or don't ask me. Because I'm not going to tell you so, I'm not going to play with your life, because I don't want nobody playing with mine. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
But it's important that we understand what he's coming to do. He's coming to do this, why? Once again, because there is social injustice going on even now. According to Levy, the Mashiach of the Targumim involves a time centered in a king primarily of Davidic lineage, appointed by Yahuwah, who will mete out reward and punishment in truth and in justice. That's the Mashiach. That's not Yahshua. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Now, an alternative perspective. And this is where we are going to begin to see a lot of things that have brought about a lot of confusion. Are y'all hearing me?
Yes.
I'm only going to read a portion of it, and then we're going to pray. Once again, this is where we're getting ready to really get into the meat of this teaching. And it's going to show us where a lot of confusion has stemmed from, why it came about, and how we are to get ourselves from it. How can we loose ourselves from this confusion and help other people loose themselves from this, so that we as a people can move forward and begin to see our lives and the lives of our people restored. Because we have been hit hard. Because once again, I'm a believer that if you're going to look at it, you have to see both sides. You can never go at one angle, because if you go at it, it's going to be imbalanced. And it's sad, but many people read things, and because they can find a scripture to reference it, and depending on their teaching background. If it's a scripture you reference and that reference supports it based upon your background teaching, even if it's wrong, you're going to accept it because of your teaching. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
That is why we have to walk in a place of restoration. And that's what he's doing, restoring us so that we can understand how to interpret, how to receive the writings without rebuttaling the writings
Right.
because of a scripture somebody tossed at us that they believe are a reference scripture to debunk what we have known as truth for so many years. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand that. Now, an alternative perspective. Zimmerli and Jeremias present an alternative perspective of the interpretation of Yashiya's servant songs during the ancient period. Remember, we're looking at the ancient and medieval period. So each one of these follow in a time period. We're going over the ancient time period now. Next, we'll be going over the medieval time period. And we're going to compare. And I'm telling you, it's going to blow your mind. Because when you see the things that transpired, you're going to begin to say, wow, this is why we have to really pray. So that we don't just grab something and run with it. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
All right, once again, they consider the question in view from a contrast between Hellenistic and Palestinian interpretations. They limit their discussion to the phrase servant of Yahuwah in Yashiyah 41 and 53. Now, once again, I'm going to give you the definition of the Palestinian Judaism and the Hellenistic Judaism, and we're going to pray. And that way, what you have, you will be able, you will go, I want you to ruminate on it, I want you to pray about it, go back, watch this teaching again, and familiarize yourself with the scriptures and that which was spoken. Now, let's look at Palestinian Judaism. It is referring to Jews in an ethnic rather than religious sense. It's looking at them as in an ethnic view rather than a religious sense. The term Palestinian used to refer to Jews in Europe who were regarded as an alien presence. Are you following me?
Yes.
They are an alien presence. But when you put Palestinian Judaism together, you have to understand Palestinian. Are you following me?
Yes.
Meaning the European Jews, the ones that's over there now. And Judaism. What is Judaism? Judaism. The belief that Yahush is Yahuwah, the son of Yahuwah, is a person of the Trinity, is incompatible with Jewish theology. Jews believe Yahush of Nazarene did not fulfill the Mashiach prophecies that establishes the criteria for the coming Mashiach. It focuses more on deeds than on belief. It's a practice it is a practice that is called a way of life. I had to look again. Couldn't look at my writing. I'm doing that shorthand writing. Woo! Okay, did y'all understand that?
Yes.
So when you look at Judaism, Judaism focuses more on practice. It focuses more on the deeds than on belief. Like how, if you've ever read anything by, I think his name is, I had it right in the, I think it's Nathan Gordon or one of the rabbis, or anything that is Jewish. Now, the reason why I read it, and I'm reading it just as it is, because you have to understand the inline, or that what is what we use for our studies. Okay, many of the teachers and many of the reference materials and many of the commentaries, the majority of the commentaries we read are of Jewish background. Are y'all following me? And this is why a lot of our stuff, or the majority of our stuff, is tainted, because it's from a Jewish perspective. So, with that being said, once again, you have to understand Judaism. And this is where a lot of times we have problems and issues, because a lot of our Ibram are Judaizers. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Whether many of them know it or not. Many of them are Judaizers, because you have to understand, in Judaism, this is where you get all this crazy stuff, where this is where they brought about the lighting of the candles before Shabbat. This is where they get where, and we do wash our hands before we eat. We do that. And not because we are trying to follow under tradition, but if you've been setting and you've been doing things, we wash our hands, but we also give, we also pray after we wash our hands. Are you understanding? Yes. But we know it's not a command of Yahuwah. But this is where they take it and they make it a doctrine. And this is why they came against Yahush, because it wasn't that the apostles didn't wash their hands. It was how they washed their hands. If you ever notice in the medical field, when the doctors wash their hands, you have to understand your hand is just not here. Your hand extends to here. This is why when they wash their hands, they wash all this right here before they go into surgery when they come out. You see them washing and they wash all the way up here, all up here, and all up here. Because that is also constituted as your hand. Well, when the apostles washed their hands, they didn't take it to that extent. And so the rabbis began to criticize Yahushua and say, did they not follow the traditions in washing their hands? It wasn't that they didn't wash their hands. It was how they washed their hands that they criticized them about. Okay? So when you look at Judaism, the belief of Judaism is that, once again, Yahush is Yahuwah. You'll follow me? Yes. Many people probably believe he is. No, he's not. Yahush is not Yahuwah. Yahuwah is Yahuwah, the Abba, and Yahush is the Son. Now, the Son of Yahuwah is a person of the Trinity. We know that there is no such thing as the Trinity. Are you following me?
Yes.
Is incompatible with theology, with the Jewish theology. They believe Yahush of Nazareth did not fulfill the Mashiach prophecies that established the criteria for the coming Mashiach. They didn't believe that. And this is what a lot of our Ak and Akodi are following under, Judaism. Are y'all hearing me?
Yes.
Now, what does Judaism focus on? It focuses more on deeds than on belief. Put your right shoe on first, then put your left shoe on. Then tie your right shoe, then tie your left shoe. All of that stuff is based in superstition. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Praying towards the east. Many of y'all ain't gonna like me after this. Many people are bona fide believers that you have to pray towards the east. That is not the way that Yahuwah told us to pray. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
These are things. They focus more on deeds than on belief. And their practice, and they were called, their practice, and they believe also in practice. And this is called the way of life. So they didn't call themselves anything else but that. They said, well, this is the way of life, so this is how we have to practice it. So you have to understand the difference between the tradition of Judaism and the truth of Torah. So when you look at these two, or look at Palestinian Judaism, remember the definition. Now when we look at the Hellenistic, I have to find up in here. Let's see. All right. Hellenistic Judaism. The term Hellenistic Judaism is a conventional one, long used, but a misnomer, according to many contemporary scholars. Traditionally, Hellenistic Judaism was a designation for Judaism in the Greek-speaking world, including those Jews who spoke Greek and adopted, to some extent, a Greek way of life. It has been argued, however, that all Judaism after the conquest of Alexander was Hellenistic Judaism. The Hellenistic period began with the conquest of Alexander, but when did it end? In one sense, it continued under the Romans and even encompassed the Byzantine period, ending only with the Islamic conquest. For practical purposes, however, the bibliography given here comes primarily the period from Alexander to the Roman conquest under Pompey, circa 335 to 65 BCE, a period of almost 3 centuries. From the point of view of the region or province of Judah, it takes in first the Ptolemaic, then Seleucid, and finally Hasmonean rule. The last is very important as almost a century of rule by a native Jewish dynasty of priest kings, although many have seen the Maccabean revolt as opposing Hellenistic culture. This is to be very much doubted. Now, Hellenistic Judaism is part of a wider historical period and phenomena known as Second Temple Judaism, which refers to Judaism from Cyrus' conquest of Babylon to the fall of Jerusalem temple in 70 CE, or the Persian, Greek, and early Roman periods. Many of the major developments of Judaism during this time actually began in the Persian period, but they sometimes accelerated under Greek rule, and Greek rule brought its own influence and contributions to the Jewish people. This has been most discussed with regard to Hellenization and so-called Hellenistic reform preceding the Maccabean revolt. Now, it's not really a lot about Hellenistic Judaism, but it includes, once again, Judaism and the belief. But when you look at the belief and you look at the Hellenistic, which were those that were Greek speaking and even to a point changed their lifestyle to be Greeks, but they were Ibram. Are y'all following me? And so this is what you call Hellenistic Judaism. Those that were Ibram, but they chose to live like the Greeks, and they spoke Greek, and even some of them spoke Aramaic. So that's what I wanted to bring out. And when you look at our people, this is what a lot of our people have done and continue to do. Are you following me? Yes. Take on that way of life. Now you have to understand, because we are of the diaspora, we took on the life of the place we were dispersed to. That's why here in America, you find that Christianity is the ruling religion. And many of our ancestors and forefathers took on that way of life because that's all they knew. I believe if some of us were placed in other places, we probably would have ended up being Muslim. And so forth and so on. Not saying that Muslims are not here, but I'm saying here in America, predominantly it is Christianity. But you have to understand, Islam is on the heels of Christianity. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
And so this is what you would call, once again, they were the Hellenistic Hebrews, and they spoke Greek and so forth, and basically changed their life during that time. And so we're going to look at their perspective next week, Yahuwah willing. We're going to look at the Palestinian Judaism, and we're going to look at the Hellenistic Judaism. And when I tell you, it brings about, once again, a lot of clarity, because you have to understand, when we read different manuscripts and we read different writings, when you read from the King James, you're going to see it. When you read from the Besorah, you're going to see it. When you read from the Abrahamic covenant, you're going to see it. When you read from the different scrolls, which we call today Bibles, you're going to see different references. If you reference it, you're going to see, if you put all of them before you, some of them are going to have different references, and some of them might have the same reference scriptures, but they will allude to something different. Some will refer to the Yashia 53 as Yasharal. And then some will refer to Yashia 53 to Yahush. And we're going to get to, once again, the bottom of it as Yahuwah continues to give it to us and allows me to bring it forward. Once again, we're going to stop here, but I pray that you were able to understand Palestinian Judaism and Judaism and its belief and the practices, and the Hellenistic Judaism, and how the interpretations as we look at it, how it changed the course of history. And we're going to see the history changer when Yahuwah allows us to come back. And it only takes, y'all, it only takes one person to interject something, once again, challenge something, and nobody meets the challenge to change it. And now it is in place. And when these things happen, guess what happens? It falls on us because now we take what we learned, we take it and we say, okay, this must be the truth, until we really start seeking and saying, wait a minute, that I know this is who you're speaking of. I know you're speaking about Yahush Mashiach. And so if these things are left unchecked, we will continue to see more of our people walk away from truth because of a lie and because of an interpretation that someone interjected because they felt like they had the right to. Now, many people would say, but how can that be? I don't want to say it's easy, but it was done. And this is why so many people today reject Yahush as the Mashiach and don't accept the description of him in Yashia 53. So once again, I pray that that which has been released to you on this Layla, that you have come to understand, as I've come to understand, we're in a time of recovery, restoration, and true revival. We can't be revived until we are walking in absolute truth. Not a portion of truth, but absolute truth. And as we walk in absolute truth, we will be absolutely convinced that our way of life is the only way of life. And it is through Yahush Mashiach that we can obtain this and hold fast to it. So I pray on tonight that Yahuwah will continue to minister to your heart and will continue to bring you into the truth as he is bringing us all into this truth, that we will walk as a cod and continue to give him esteem for his son, sacrifice for us, so that we can have that right relationship with him. I want you to remember that I am Aliyah Yasharal, and I am the leader of Messengers of Yahuwah's Kingdom of Break Belief Ministries. And I want you to remember here at Messengers of Yahuwah's Kingdom of Break Belief Ministries, this is the place where
the Torah does the body excellent.
Until next time, may Abba Yahuwah Baruch and keep you in his shalom until we meet again. Also, I want you to remember that you've been touched by Champion TV, a place where the champions reside. And it is so.
And it is so.
This is Champion TV.